we are taught to see the eldest daughter as a personality type. We call her mature, responsible, and the reliable one. But these aren't personality traits. They are symptoms of a structural requirement. The eldest daughter is not born. She's built. Welcome to a by Mariah Dixon video essay. My take, your time. Let's dive in. The figure of the eldest daughter is often discussed as a personality type, a collection of overachieving tendencies, or a relatable social media trope. However, viewing her through the lens of individual temperament obscures the structural reality of her existence. The eldest daughter is not born. She is manufactured. She is a functional necessity within the family unit. Her identity is forged at the intersection of gender expectations and birth order utility, creating a role that is defined less by who she is and more by what she provides. The cost of this position is rarely financial, though it often manifests as a lifetime of uncompensated labor. It is the steady erosion of the self in service of the collective. To understand the eldest daughter is to understand a system that requires a secondary parental figure, one who possesses the authority of an adult but lacks the autonomy of one. Let's dive into the formation, function, and long-term impact of this role, tracing its evolution from a survival mechanism to a psychological blueprint. The role of the eldest daughter as a structural requirement is not a modern phenomenon, nor is it culturally isolated. From the early 1800s through the Industrial Revolution and into the modern era, the family unit has functioned as a microeconomy. In European agrarian societies, the eldest daughter was the deputy mother, a formalized role that ensured the survival of younger siblings while the mother was occupied with infant care or field labor. In many African and Asian kinship systems, this role was even more pronounced, embedded in a psychology of communal responsibility where the firstborn girl acted as a bridge between the generations. In the American context, particularly within Black families post-Reconstruction and through the Great Migration, the eldest daughter was a critical component of racial uplift and survival. When parents were forced into grueling labor under the constraints of Jim Crow, the eldest daughter became the administrator of the household. She was the protector, the cook, and the moral compass for her siblings. This historical grounding reveals the Eldest Daughter Syndrome is actually a legacy of survival. The role was designed to mitigate the failures of the state or the pressures of poverty. In these contexts, the eldest daughter's labor was a direct contribution to the family's upward mobility. The implication of this history is profound. The eldest daughter has been conditioned for centuries to equate her value with her utility. Her worth is measured by how much of the domestic burden she can carry without buckling. The transition from labor to identity occurs through the cultural reinforcement. Religion, patriarchy, and social moralism have long conspired to frame the eldest daughter's burden not as a task, but as a virtue. In many religious traditions, the virtuous woman is defined by her self-sacrifice and her ability to manage the household in quiet efficiency. For the eldest daughter, these traits are demanded before she reaches adolescence. When a young girl is praised for being mature for her age or a huge help, the external world is essentially validating the suppression of her childhood. These praises function as a form of grooming. It teaches her that she's most lovable when she's most useful. This normalization transforms structural labor into a personality trait. What began as a requirement for family survival becomes her nature. A prime example of this is in the film Encanto, where the character Luisa embodies this transition. While she possesses literal super strength, her internal world is defined by the pressure to never falter. She sings of the pressure like a drip, drip, drip that never stops. Louisa's identity is entirely tied to her ability to move mountains and reroute rivers for her community. The narrative reveals that without her strength, Louisa feels she has no purpose. This is the ultimate triumph of the cultural reinforcement. The subject becomes the primary enforcer of their own exploitation. The eldest daughter learns to fear her own rest, viewing it not as right, but as a failure of her character. As we moved into the late 20th and early 21st centuries, the material conditions of many families changed, but the psychological expectations of the eldest daughter remained static. In middle-class environments where survival is no longer the primary concern, the eldest daughter's role shifted from physical labor to emotional and administrative management. She is no longer just washing clothes. She is managing the family calendar, mediating disputes between parents, and ensuring that family's external reputation remains unblemished. This evolution is perhaps most starkly illustrated in the character Fiona Gallagher from Shameless. Fiona represents the extreme end of the spectrum, a structural parent in a system of total parental failure. Unlike her historical predecessors, Fiona's labor does not lead to a greater communal good or social mobility. It is a desperate holding action against chaos. Fiona's role reveals a modern truth. Even when the parents are physically present, the eldest daughter is often the one holding the emotional leash on the home. The expectations of her resilience is so high that the system ceases to function the moment she prioritizes herself. The modern eldest daughter is a safety net for a family that has forgotten how to catch itself. The psychological trajectory of the eldest daughter follows a predictable and often damaging path. It begins with the parentification, a process where a child is forced to take on emotional or practical responsibilities of an adult. This is not merely helping out. It is the reversal of the caregiver-child dynamic. When a child is tasked with the emotional regulation of a parent, she learns that her own feelings are secondary to the stability of the environment. This leads directly to hyper-independence. Because the eldest daughter could not rely on the adults around her to manage the world, she concludes that she can only rely on herself. This independence is often mistaken for her strength, but it is actually a trauma response, a preemptive strike against disappointment. In Medea's family reunion, we see this play out through the characters of Lisa and Vanessa. Lisa, the chosen one, is forced into a performance of perfection to appease her mother's social ambitions, while Vanessa bears the weight of past trauma and the responsibility of protection. The divergence in their coping mechanisms highlights how the role of the eldest daughter can lead to a fractured sense of self. One sister becomes a hollow shell of expectations, while the other becomes a fortress. This hyper-independence eventually results in relational strain. In adulthood, the eldest daughter often struggles to receive care. She views intimacy as another set of needs to be managed rather than a reciprocal exchange. She is the strong friend, the one everyone calls in a crisis, yet she remains profoundly isolated within her own competence. We are currently in a moment of significant cultural reckoning regarding these roles. Millennials and Gen Z alike, largely through the medium of social media and increased access to psychological discourse, have begun to name these patterns. Terms like emotional labor, adultification, and parentification have moved from clinical settings into common vernacular. For Black women specifically, this naming is an act of liberation. It challenges the strong woman archetype that has historically demanded the eldest daughter's total self-abnegation. By identifying these patterns, young generations are refusing to accept character as an excuse for overburden. They are recognizing that the dependability praised by their elders was often a form of stolen girlhood. However, naming a pattern is not the same as breaking it. The structural pressures, economic instability, the lack of social safety nets, and the persistence of the patriarchal family values still exist. The discourse on social media often focuses on individual healing, But the role of the eldest daughter is a systematic issue. It requires a reimagining of how we distribute care within the family and society at large. At the heart of the eldest daughter's formation is the relationship with her mother. This is often the most fraught and complex aspect of the role. It is the collision of two women trying to navigate a system that was not built for their flourishing. The daughter's resentment and the mother's expectation are often two sides of the same coin, a coin minted in the fires of necessity. The ultimate question facing the eldest daughter as she moves into adulthood and middle age is one of core identity. If the roles of protector, manager, and laborer are stripped away, what remains?